I don't even know where to begin. It's hard to untangle the mess in my head, let alone put it into words. But I'll start with what I know, the day it all started. We were newlyweds, just a year in. Taylor, my wife, had been so excited about her first job. She'd landed a secretary position at a big corporate office downtown, and it felt like the first brick in building our life together. We had dreams, buying a house, starting a family, building a future that felt uniquely ours. At first, everything seemed perfect. She was glowing with excitement every evening when she came home, sharing stories about her colleagues and the intimidatingly charismatic boss she worked for, Alan. I didn't think much of it. Everyone has that one boss who either inspires or terrifies them. Taylor described him as intense but brilliant, a man who commanded respect the moment he entered a room. Weeks turned into months. Subtle changes crept in. Taylor started coming home later, often with excuses about extra work or late meetings. The stories about Alan became more frequent, peppered with an admiration that bordered on reverence. "Alan's got this way of making you feel like you can conquer the world," she'd say, her eyes sparkling. I'd laugh it off, teasing her about her little work crush. She'd swat my arm, laughing along, but there was a tension in her eyes I couldn't quite place. We stopped having dinner together. Her phone became an extension of her hand, buzzing late into the night with what she claimed were urgent work updates. And then came the scent, faint but unmistakable, the subtle whiff of cologne that wasn't mine when she kissed me goodnight. I chalked it up to paranoia. We were both adjusting to the demands of her job and the expectations that came with it. Surely, I was overthinking. I convinced myself that things would balance out. But the growing distance between us said otherwise. The first real crack came one Friday evening. Taylor had texted earlier, saying she'd be late again. "Working on a big presentation with Alan," she wrote, punctuated by a smiley face emoji that felt forced. I didn't argue. What was the point? I tried to distract myself, but a nagging feeling kept gnawing at me. Around 10 p.m., I drove to her office building. I told myself it wasn't about checking on her, it was about being a thoughtful husband, bringing her the dinner she'd missed. The office was mostly dark, except for the glow of lights on the upper floors. As I got closer, I saw her through the large glass windows of a corner office, Alan's office. My heart dropped. She was laughing at something he said, leaning against his desk with an ease that didn't belong to the Taylor I knew. Alan stood close, too close, his hand resting casually on the back of her chair. I froze, unsure of what to do. They didn't kiss. They didn't touch beyond that. But the way they were together felt intimate in a way that cut deeper than physical betrayal. I didn't confront her that night. I went home, tossed the untouched dinner into the trash, and tried to sleep. When she came back, hours later, she slid into bed and whispered, "Long night, but we nailed it." Her voice was tinged with triumph. I stared at the ceiling, wondering who this woman beside me had become. The following week, my suspicions only grew. Taylor's behavior was erratic. She'd alternate between being overly affectionate and withdrawing completely. When I brought up my concerns, lightly, cautiously, she snapped, accusing me of being insecure and not trusting her. "You know how much this job means to me," she said one morning, her tone sharp as she threw her bag over her shoulder. "Alan's mentoring me. He sees my potential in a way no one else ever has." Mentoring. The word stuck in my throat like bile. I decided to stop being passive. If she wasn't going to tell me what was really happening, I'd find out myself. The next Thursday, I skipped work and parked outside her office building. It felt dirty, wrong even, but the alternative, living in ignorance, felt worse. Around 8 p.m., I saw them leave together. Alan's hand lingered on her back as they walked to his car, laughing like old friends. I followed them. They didn't go to a restaurant. They didn't head toward any work event. They drove to a nearby hotel. My stomach churned as I watched them walk inside, her hand brushing against his as they disappeared into the lobby. I stayed in that parking lot for hours, my mind racing. When she finally came home, she smelled of wine and excuses. Last-minute dinner with Alan to celebrate the presentation, she said, kicking off her heels and collapsing onto the couch. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The lie sat heavy between us, unspoken but undeniable. Taylor acted as though nothing had changed, smiling through breakfasts, texting me little updates about her day as if she hadn't just shattered everything we'd built. But I couldn't play along anymore. I spent the next week preparing myself, quietly gathering every scrap of evidence I could. It wasn't hard. A careless email she left open on our shared laptop confirmed what I already knew. Last night was amazing, Alan had written, followed by details I didn't want to imagine. The words were a dagger, but the photos attached, the two of them at the hotel bar, his hand possessively low on her back, turned the knife. My world came crashing down in an instant. That night, I sat at the kitchen table waiting for her to come home. The clock ticked past 9, then 10. At 11:30, the sound of her keys in the lock snapped me from my daze. Long night? I asked as she stepped inside. Her face faltered for a moment before her usual facade slid into place. Yeah. Alan and I had to. Stop. My voice came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. I know, Taylor. I know about you and him. The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? I stood, my heart pounding. Don't insult me with lies. I saw the emails. The photos. I followed you to the hotel last week. Her mouth opened, but no words came. The silence between us was deafening. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. It's not what you think. Not what I think. I laughed bitterly. You've been screwing your boss in some cheap hotel while I've been here, supporting you, trusting you. She tried to take my hand, but I pulled away, the thought of her touch repulsive. Please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain, I said coldly. You made your choice, Taylor. Now I'm making mine. The next day, I contacted a divorce lawyer. I didn't tell Taylor right away. Let her squirm, let her wonder what I was going to do. In the meantime, I focused on myself. I moved into the spare bedroom, took her off our shared bank accounts, and started quietly packing away pieces of my life that had become unbearable reminders of her betrayal. Taylor tried to fix things, half-hearted apologies, promises to work on us, but it all rang hollow. Every time she spoke, all I could hear was Alan's name. Then came the night everything exploded. I came home earlier than usual, the weight of the last few weeks making work unbearable. As I climbed the stairs to our apartment, I heard laughter. Taylor's laughter. It wasn't alone. Quietly, I pushed the door open. There they were, in our living room, Alan sitting on our couch, Taylor perched next to him with a glass of wine in her hand. They froze when they saw me. Wow, I said, my voice shaking with a mix of rage and disbelief. You couldn't even keep him out of our home? Taylor stood quickly, knocking over her glass. It's not, he was just. Get out, I said, my gaze locked on Alan. Both of you. Alan smirked, the kind of smug, entitled grin that begged to be wiped off his face. Look, buddy. Don't you dare call me buddy. I stepped closer, fists clenched. You don't belong here. You never did. Taylor started crying, pleading with me to calm down, but I was done. This was the breaking point, and there was no coming back. I'll have the divorce papers sent to you, I said, my voice cold and final. Pack your things. Leave. And don't come back. I walked out, the sound of Taylor's sobs and Alan's low murmur fading behind me. When I walked out of the apartment that night, I felt like I was leaving my own life behind. The world outside didn't care that my heart was in pieces, that everything I thought I knew about love and loyalty was a joke. The city was alive, cars honking, people laughing on sidewalks, but I was a ghost, floating through it all with no destination in mind. I drove aimlessly, the hum of the engine my only companion. My mind replayed the scene over and over, Alan's smug face, Taylor's frantic tears, the wine glass shattering on the floor. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to make the world feel even a fraction of the pain clawing at my chest. But I didn't. I just kept driving. Eventually, I ended up at my buddy Mike's place. He didn't ask questions. He didn't have to. The look on my face must have said everything. He handed me a cold beer and sat with me on the couch, the TV playing some mindless sitcom I couldn't even pretend to care about. The silence was good. It felt like the first solid ground I'd stepped on in weeks. The next morning, I woke up on Mike's couch with a crick in my neck and a flood of missed messages from Taylor. Text after text of apologies, excuses, desperate pleas to work this out. "Let me explain," one of them said. "I'm so sorry." "It didn't mean anything," said another. "Didn't mean anything? She destroyed us for something that didn't mean anything?" I deleted every message without a second thought. When I got back to the apartment, the first thing I noticed was the silence. No Taylor humming in the kitchen, no faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air. Her side of the closet was empty. The bathroom counter, once cluttered with her makeup and lotions, was spotless. A note sat on the kitchen table, written in her rushed, looping script, "I'm staying with a friend. Please call me. We can fix this. I love you." I stared at it for a long time, the words blurring together. Finally, I tore it in half and threw it in the trash. Fix this? How do you fix a marriage when the foundation's been ripped out from under it? The divorce process was quick, thanks to the evidence I'd gathered. My lawyer handled most of it while I kept my distance from Taylor as much as possible. The one time we sat in the same room, during mediation, she broke down in tears. "Please," she begged, her voice trembling. "We can go to therapy. I'll do anything. I made a mistake, but I love you. I love us." I wanted to feel something, anger, pity, even sadness, but all I felt was emptiness. She was a stranger now, a woman I didn't recognize. "You threw us away the second you let him into your life," I said. My voice didn't shake. I didn't blink. "It's over." She cried harder as she signed the papers. I felt nothing. A week after the papers were filed, I got a call from a mutual friend. "Dude, you're not gonna believe this," he said. "Alan's life is falling apart. His wife kicked him out, and the company's investigating him for misconduct. He's living in some motel on the edge of town." I should have been angry, or bitter, or something, but instead, I laughed. Not the bitter, angry laugh I'd been carrying in my chest for weeks, but a real laugh. Deep and honest. It felt good. 2 weeks later, Taylor showed up at my door. I didn't even recognize her at first. She looked wrecked, hair messy, eyes puffy, makeup smeared. She didn't look like the confident woman who had walked into Alan's hotel room. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice small. "No," I said. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, blocking her way in. "Please, just let me explain," she begged. "Alan, he's not who I thought he was. He..." "Stop," I said sharply, cutting her off. "I don't care what he is or isn't. I don't care what happened between you two. You made your choice, Taylor. Now you get to live with it." She stared at me, her lip trembling, her eyes full of tears. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. "But you did." I didn't wait for her to respond. I closed the door, leaned my head against the wood, and let out a deep, shuddering breath. For the first time in weeks, I felt free. The day Taylor's things were finally gone, I stood in the middle of what used to be our living room and felt the weight of silence settle around me. Her scent was gone, her laughter was a distant echo, and the apartment felt more like a hollow shell than the home we had once shared. I took a deep breath and opened the windows, letting the cold air rush in, cleansing the space of the past. I needed to reclaim this place, to make it mine again. The framed photos of us on the mantel were replaced with landscapes and cityscapes. The throw pillows she'd picked out went into a donation box, replaced with ones in colors she'd always hated but I secretly liked. It was small, these changes, but they felt monumental. At first, moving on felt impossible. Everywhere I went, reminders of her lingered. The coffee shop where we'd shared lazy Sunday mornings. The park where we'd picnicked and dreamed of our future. Even the grocery store, where her favorite cereal stared back at me from the shelves, felt like an ambush. But life doesn't stop for heartbreak. I poured myself into work, into friendships I had neglected, into hobbies I'd always wanted to try but never found the time for. I signed up for a cooking class, took up cycling, and started journaling, something I hadn't done since I was a teenager. Some days were harder than others. There were mornings when the emptiness hit like a punch to the gut, when the loneliness felt suffocating. But those days became fewer and farther between as time marched on. About 6 months after the divorce, I ran into a mutual friend at a party. He brought up Taylor, as people often did, tiptoeing around the subject like it was fragile glass. I learned that things with Alan hadn't lasted long. His personal life had crumbled after his wife's discovery of the affair, and Taylor had been collateral damage. Hearing it didn't bring me the satisfaction I thought it would. There was no vindication, no triumph in her downfall. Instead, I felt detached. It wasn't my life anymore. It wasn't my burden to carry. One evening, I found myself at a park I hadn't been to in years. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the trees, and the air was crisp with the promise of autumn. I sat on a bench, watching the world move around me, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel the ache of loss. I felt hope. The betrayal had gutted me, but it hadn't destroyed me. I was still standing, still breathing, still capable of building something new. My past with Taylor would always be a part of me, a chapter in my story, but it no longer defined me. As the sky turned to twilight, I got up from the bench, ready to step into whatever came next. The future was mine again, and I wasn't going to waste it.